Hello and welcome to Queer Black Wealth's Season 1 finale. Thank you for joining me. I'm Natasha. Nat or Tasha, either is completely fine, and I'm just glad you're here. And I wanted to say thank you. This is what happens when you dare to speak truth about queer Black folks and money in post-election America 2024. From 21 to 47 subscribers might not sound like much, but those 3,000 plus views tell a different story. And this is the type of story that happens when we start having the conversations we've been too exhausted, too traumatized, or conditioned to have. The true magic isn't in those numbers, but in the DMs, the quiet messages from mostly Gen X navigating corporate closets, respectability politics at family dinners, and still trying to figure out how to build wealth around all they navigate internally. I see you, I was you, and I'm welcoming you and anyone else who wants to comment by emailing, DMing me in Instagram, or reaching out in the comments. And those of you we're so small, but the bigotry and homophobia and all the crap that has shown up in the comments that I have had to delete so people feel comfortable commenting, and the kind words that some of you have said to each other about just being real, and it's wonderful. So I am here for that. So let's get into what I want to talk about today. In this episode, people aren't just venting about leaving America. This is one thing that seemed to have struck a chord with the audience. We all knew that there was an undercurrent of a social civil war happening in America, but the results of the election really heightened lots of fears around being Black and queer here. It's very difficult for some people, and lots of folks actually do want to leave, and I can't blame them. I think I stated that very clearly in another video, but they are running the numbers, they are plotting exit strategies, they are looking at things with precision. This comes from years and years of calculating every single move, because so many spaces are hostile. Whether that's microaggression or overt aggression. Being Black and queer in this country has always been full contact sport where you have to wrap up and get ready, straight up. And this election has heightened people's fear, anxiety, and anger. Lots of people just have stopped pretending that they were not. So those of our community that are still closeted are truly struggling. And I'm just so happy and honored that they felt comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, it's good that you're there. Nice to know someone who looks like me is talking real talk, straight up survival stuff, on the way to wealth, on the way to the dream, to the things we want, and acknowledging where I am today. I felt so confirmed and validated, because I am often in the middle of the dreamer and the person who's out there trying and doing things and either express themselves in a certain way and got some notoriety, or trying to build from where they are, but they have some cushion and some other things helping them to do, whether that's education or being looked at in a Black excellence way, or whatever the situation may be, they have something that's helping them. And then on the other side of this bridge I am in the middle of, people are trying to survive, figure it out, make a way, and they're scared, have been abused or are being abused, or are the truly disenfranchised among us. And being in the middle, I am privy to so many private conversations about all the aspects of finance that touch both sides of the bridge. And now what I'm finding is that no one is exempt from that collective fear, anxiety, and anger and sadness that has resulted from everything that has happened so far. So that's where we are right now. And because of all this, everybody has a different reaction. So while some folks want us to straight up ignore the system and others want us to burn it all down, I'm here on this bridge to show people as much as I possibly can how to build an empowered life despite the system. When I think of building something despite what's around us, I think about people who made it through wars and found a way out of slavery, whether they got freed or freed themselves. And that is the spirit that sort of infuses this queer Black wealth conversation today in 2024 to me. And so strategically, legally, with our dignity intact, and without making ourselves more vulnerable to this dangerous system, I want to make sure people see that there are paths and there are choices to get to the dream we're all reaching for. And that may not be tomorrow. I might not live to see it. I'm 48. I just made my 48th birthday. But what's really cool is we're having these conversations now, including the realism and the practical flavor of, Tasha, why are people constantly just talking about this utopian future that does not exist for me now? Or no part of that can I see through my stress. Money doesn't matter and all this other stuff. Of course it doesn't when we're talking about human worth. But of course it does to our Black trans sisters who are the most disenfranchised among us. Survival is key. A job is key. Renting a good house is key to their safety and their mental capability to get to the dream, right? So I don't know about you. I'm sick and tired of ignoring and bypassing all that, talking only of the thing we dream of as if it is so clear to us all that it's a possibility, because it is not to someone who is plagued with only survival each day. So I am really happy to have both those conversations at once. Honestly, I'm happy to have all those folks in one room and see that it start to grow. It's really cool. But I want to make sure that I am staying in the land of the true and real, where we are acknowledging the things that need to be acknowledged while not letting that acknowledgement control and condition every single choice we make. We can do that. We can do both. It's possible. It's actually happening right now. If you're here and you're listening to this, you are participating in that. You are acknowledging that the real thing you go through that makes you anxious and stressful and hurt financially is also the same thing that can make you dream bigger. I appreciate that I'm not talking into the void, and these are things more people are willing to discuss. Survival can feel like a full-time job as we are trying to create new paths and dream. The truth is, we weren't left out of wealth. We were systematically excluded. Being able to see both at the same time is key. That changes everything. Being able to hold both those thoughts, being able to operate from both those places interchangeably and in a flow, inhaling and exhaling what's happening and what's going on around us in the real world and in the world we dream of. Being able to hold both of those worlds inside ourselves, that is key. And that is a key distinction in how we start to change what's ahead. Once you see that your exclusion was by design, you begin to see that your inclusion has always been in your power. And not in that pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of way, but in the way that we have had the ingredients, but we just needed our own recipe kind of way. I'm taking a strategic pause for the tax season from the podcast. So the podcast seasons will be from June to November, and December to April is my peak season. If I do any little blurbs for you, I will try to pop on as time allows. I will also be doing strategic videos for accounting and tax tips for my private practice over at NJLR Consulting on YouTube. But don't think for a second we're slowing down. This is just the beginning of a much bigger conversation. And we want to talk about what it means to build wealth without making ourselves more vulnerable to systems that would rather we not exist at all. So season 2 does drop June 2025. Until then, I want to make sure that we still connect with each other, and I will be, shorts are easier, so I will be doing some shorts in the meantime. Until then, I want to do a real quick recap of the 5 episodes we've done for those of you who are new. and you may not know what those episodes are about. I want to give you a few highlights before I go into what to expect in season 2 and my thoughts. So let's talk about what we uncovered in season 1 of Queer Black Wealth, the podcast, because each episode cracked open something crucial about our relationship with money and what power actually is, even of the words and how they're used and how they hit, right? Like when you hear that word, what does it feel like? What does it bring up? Episode 1 had us examining our Stockholm syndrome with the financial system that has been gaslighting us since birth. You know how you have that toxic ex who convinced you that you needed their abuse to survive? That's what capitalism is. And that's probably why being in America feels like a domestic violence relationship. Anyway, I'm digressing, but just like with any abusive relationship, the first step to freedom is naming the dynamic, right? We've been conditioned to think we need to create our definition of success to align with what we've been conditioned to believe it is. But spoiler alert, we do not. And I would love it if you would go back to the episodes in either YouTube or Substack for season 1. You can see the show notes in Substack. So if you go there, you can have the full layout of each episode. Just another plug to invite you there if you decide to support me by joining Substack on the paid level. So that's what episode 1 was. The Pod Has Cast is the name of that episode. So please indulge me in listening to the first time I did this. It's hard for me to listen to now. I'm getting better. I'm not a pro for sure, but that was episode 1. Episode 2, Resilience and Resources, had us talking about resilience, not in that toxic pull yourself up nonsense that has Black folks doing Olympic level gymnastics to survive. But we were talking about real community-based resource sharing that would make our ancestors proud and our oppressors nervous, because who isn't here for that? True resilience isn't about individual strength, but it is about how we connect to each other and how we come together. In those show notes on Substack, I also added how to reach the IRS free, right? Get things that a lot of people just aren't aware of that actually exist. I put links and explanations on how to receive the information that you need directly from the horse's mouth as it relates to taxes. And some of us are working backwards from there because our taxes are such a mess. So I just wanted to make sure that was laid out as clearly as possible. So you can go to the show notes and see those links and explanations, as well as a collected resource list that was built while I was working with a pride group for a huge corporation. We basically had over 10,000 employees, and a good number of them were of our community. I was the global lead of communication and community, and the resource list that I am sharing here was a global resource list when we did some work for Pride Month through some wonderful folks that were there that shared these resources. And I always remember that whenever I find anything, I try to share it, because a lot of this stuff is all locked up and safe and only available to certain people. So I was granted the ability to see this, and I know there are things that are on this list that can help folks that probably don't even realize these things are available. Please feel free to look at resilience and resources on episode 2. Scroll down on the show notes. I'm hoping that it becomes something that is digitized completely and so available to so many of us in so much easier ways over time, but we have to green book our way through the next 4 years. So please feel free to grab that if you can. In episode 3, Buddies and Bedfellows was a special episode for me because in this episode, I shared my private story. We got really intimate about money and queer relationships. And when you are navigating partnership outside a heteronormative playbook, you need different strategies because we come across things that either replicate heteronormativity or are such a stark difference that we have to undergo oppressive attitudes around our intimate relationship, which is horrible. We have some uncomfortable conversations in that episode about love, power, the price of authenticity, because there is a price, trauma bonds, and passenger princess dynamics in the queer community, and all of the different versions of financial abuse that can come with those things, and disenfranchisement of living like I did, which was closeted in a traditional relationship and then coming out later after divorce, and financially what that impact feels like. Because as much as I dream about tomorrow, and I am working very hard to make that a reality for myself, whether it is to take a sabbatical out of the country when I want to, or be here and be stable so landlords aren't just chucking me out because they can get twice the rent for somebody else for a couple of months. I am trying my hardest to make sure I am very real with people on what taxes look like in those situations, what divorce looks like from those situations, whether you are traditional right now because you're still in the closet, or you're coming out and you are trying to navigate the dating landscape and someone you meet is so wonderful and they want to go into business with you. In the show notes on Substack, there are 3 big questions that would be great if you asked yourself and your potential before going into business with them. I'm speaking from experience because I went into business with my ex-spouse, and so much of what happened with our relationship happened because of that. And dig into that episode if you think that's interesting material for you. This was the episode, by the way, where I started to get the DMs. Just saying. In episode 4, the title of it is Practically Dreaming. We talked about how, contrary to what capitalism tells us, rest is revolutionary. It is revolutionary. Trisha Hearsay, thank you. There are books about it. There are podcasts about it. There are all kinds of efforts going toward Black people in America just resting and not feeling guilty. Yes, we know our white counterparts are feeling the pressure of economics and feeling just as guilty as us when they're not productive enough, right? But there's an extra layer for folks who have our experience with this. And sometimes when your white counterparts are talking to you about rest and self-care and going to Bali for a month, sometimes that's from a place of being okay with coming back and just taking things from there. Whereas when you're Black and queer, you have survival at risk sometimes from resting. It's a different type of break for us, if we're really being honest about it. So I attack it in that episode. I hope I don't beat it to a pulp. I think I did. I don't know if you were there for that one. I got really spicy. Anyway, but we explored what it means to build wealth when you're exhausted from the daily performance of survival. And when even all the things that you have to do, when every microaggression is draining your creative energy, and when hustle culture feels like another form of colonization, protest is commodified, even when you try to show yourself a little bit of self-care and figure out what level of burnout you're at, how to take care of yourself from that place, and what it means to just voice it, to just have a safe space, a safe community to understand what it really feels like in our experience to try to come from burnout with a sense of agency around our own rest. For queer people of color, namely Black, but for all queer people of color, there are so many extra stresses involved in our survival when we risk for rest. So that's the critical thinking episode, I would say, this season, where we discuss that in detail. If I'm not mistaken, that's the longest episode out of all of them. So too long, don't listen, too long, don't read. But we do tie it back to a reimagining of economic systems, because for a lot of folks, it might just be a relief, but for us, it's vital for life, physically. There's a huge reason why Black women over 45 have the same ailments almost all the time. There is a very real reason for that. And so even though we are all in the same community, what our specific journeys mean within that collective and how we take care of ourselves and each other, acknowledging that. So feel free to go to the show notes, dig into some more resources again on that episode as well, because I felt like it was just good to repeat some things, because if you happen to miss it, you can get it there and you can see that it also relates to how we dream about the future we want. And of course, episode 5, thoughts about the election and queer Black American money. And this is an episode where I was checking in with everyone. It was our post-election reality check. And we got raw about what it means to build financial sovereignty when the very system is showing its whole oppressive behind. What is really powerful about what we discussed is that we're not just surviving anymore. We have to create blueprints for liberation. We have no choice. This is where we are. And the reality of where we are really hit different after this particular election, because it's not like we didn't already know. Again, all these things are just an undercurrent of being Black in this country. The way that conservatism and then liberalism and then conservatism and then liberalism create this toxic soup that we all live in. The anxiety, anger, and depression was soothed in a way prior to 2015 when we had more of a liberal socio-political existence headed toward equality. And we did get things like a strengthening of family recognition and gay marriage and all the things that we got up until that point. And then later on after that, it started to get really scary for a lot of people. And this particular result brought a lot of fears up to the surface. And so I think there's a movement that's happening around us. And I think that there is one that you need to start for your own sakes. And that's really what queer Black wealth is all about, to create something despite whatever's happening around us. And so this is an episode where it was really interesting to me, getting feedback from some folks in private spaces around some of these topics, and how a lot of people are having to figure out how to develop a good, healthy language around money, wealth, power, and those sorts of things because of the ways that we've been conditioned so negatively, and coming up with different ways to say things that honor our actual experience with each other and with what's going on. Yeah, that's what we discuss there. So hopefully you will go to the show notes and scroll through. Now, let's linger a little bit here. Let's talk about that post-election video that touched more than just nerves. It touched truth. When I was speaking after that about leaving America, it wasn't just about geography. It was about that bone-deep exhaustion of watching your human rights become political talking points, about that midnight math of figuring out how much freedom costs in today's market. Again, if you need some resources for that, go to episode 1's show notes and Substack. You'll see links for all the people that I follow as it relates to making your exodus. So they're wonderful people. And they are Black, by the way. So just saying. But anyway, yeah, just assessing what freedom costs in today's market for lots of folks have become a very heavy topic, a very easy to touch topic, even for somebody as small and as unknown as Queer Black Wealth and Tasha. The responses, though, baby, they were a masterclass. What happens when we start telling the truth about money and marginalization? Gen X folks DMing me from corporate closets, sharing stories about golden handcuffs that feel like shinier chains. And queer Black professionals doing their spreadsheet activism, calculating the cost of dignity in a country that is showing us exactly who they are. Right? That is what came out of that. And that is what made me so fired up about making a really clear plan of where we're headed next with Queer Black Wealth. I'm hoping that Queer Black Wealth is normal. I want it to look normal. I'm just going to inject a little personal story here really quickly about the last time that I was in a couple of different workshops and different little group coaching classes and what have you. And I was told that don't look queer, or I come off so normal. These were the exact words. One person was it was completely innocent and genuine and just make it look queerer. But when they were thinking of helping me with what I'm trying to do here, but someone else made this comment and it just made me chuckle because it brought to light how abnormal being queer and Black is for people, and how shocking it is for someone to see a Black queer single mother, divorced, working, raising a kid, and it not being the flamboyant or overtly gay looking, lesbian looking, butch looking, whatever they were expecting. I don't know. Whatever's in their head, whatever is in someone's head when they think queer, LGBTQ community, that they didn't see it in me. And my response, this is the first time I ever responded, because usually I don't. But the response I gave was, that's the whole point. I'm a middle-aged Black person in America raising a kid by myself. Like, this is the point. Everything I want is what everyone else wants too. And the more we start integrating the ideas of that in all of our spaces, the better. Again, I'm just going to keep saying it. Queer Black wealth is normal. All of that started to come out of that little spike that I had in views. And what became crystal clear to me, and I'm just going to go into the summary of this and my revelations that came from season 1. We are not just tired of the system. We're tired of pretending it wasn't designed to exclude us. Everyone's over it. We know capitalism is dying, but it hasn't yet. We know we hate money and what it has meant, but we know we need it and we need more of it. And we're owed a lot of it. But we also know that this system was designed to exclude us, but it never actually did, because we are still a very integral part of it. The trillions, I think the last time I heard it was $2.5 trillion that queer people put into the GDP, and all of the things that Black people contribute. Don't even get me started. So yes, it was designed to exclude us out of a certain aspect of it. But now we're being exposed to this social justice warrior white counterpart version where these things are being exposed because it's hurting them too. And so we have this opportunity. If you see it that way, and if you're really paying attention, we have this opportunity to actually grab that aspect they never intended for us to grab and say, I'm not trying to do what you did. I'm not trying to make a master and a servant situation for myself. I am just trying to be free from somebody's idea of what that should look like for me and create my own. A true sense of agency and a true sense of self-sufficiency financially. Because no matter the form it takes, money's going to take some form. Exchange, even in a communal effort, will take some form. So organizing yourself and being accountable, if you have been scared to be or have been conditioned to think, oh, someone else will take care of all that big stuff. No, we have to start dissecting what those big pieces are of that big stuff and do it ourselves. And that's the learning effort for queer Black wealth. That is our foundation. All these financial gurus and their designer minimalism preaching how money doesn't matter, they can miss me entirely, because while critiquing capitalism from their family funded platforms, we're out here turning survival into strategy. It is life or death for us. Homelessness, absolute exclusion from family. That brings me to Left Out No More, which is the book in editing right now, dropping in 2025. And so this isn't just another book about money. It is a manifesto for those of us who need encouragement and a mental boost to make sure that we walk forward believing, no, I'm not left out. Hell no, I'm not left out. How dare you? I want us to have some audacity like some folks have the caucasity. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want us to make sure we're not rebuilding what they built and oppressed us with. We are creating something completely new for everyone who's had to choose between authenticity and survival, between their truth and their bank account. I want to make sure that all of the folks that are in this community listening to the podcast have first dibs at it. It is full of hard work from someone 25 years in finance that has worked hand to hand with people who are queer and Black in different districts of different cities, where the pockets of us helping ourselves and trying to integrate ourselves into the rest of the community has sometimes worked, sometimes hasn't. But the truth underneath all that is we were never left out. We were just told we were. And so a lot of us just have to shift how we think about it. And that's the effort there. Hopefully you'll get a copy. Stay tuned, subscribe, make sure that you follow everything so that you can know exactly when it drops. I'm taking a strategic pause for the tax season, December to April, again, because your girl's got clients to serve, and this enroll agent license isn't just decoration. I am doing tax resolution projects for people. But season 2 will return June 2025. And trust me, we are just getting started. So until then, what I would love for you to do is join us on Substack, where we are going to be having a deeper conversation about what it means to build wealth when this system would rather you not exist. And when you do, and you force yourself onto them in their space, basically just eating in the same restaurant, they treat you like you're 3/5 human. I want to make sure that we all do honestly speak about this with each other, because it's helpful to all causes going forward, no matter what angle they're coming from. Sociopolitically, socioculturally, there's so many pieces of queer Blackness and queer persons of color can contribute to creating a new type of communal wealth path, something that gives abundance to everyone, helps us all survive and thrive in better ways. That's the whole point. So if this is where we say goodbye, thank you so much for listening to Queer Black Wealth Podcast with Tasha. I really do appreciate you listening in. Please like, share, and subscribe if just to the YouTube if you. It does support the effort and it does help things reach people. Let's use this doggone platform up, doggone it. Now, for the rest of you who are digging in deeper, wanting to hang out more and get some more specifics and some more strategic action, some more tools, some more information, and some more detail, please join me for the extended podcast over at Substack. Think about supporting us and doing the paid upgrade. I have fun things planned. I already created, but I'm going to be uploading them and refining them during my quiet tax season before next season 2's podcast comes around. But in the extended, we are going to do a season 1 deeper dive. Next week, we're going to have an extended reflection from that first episode where we dared to call financial trauma what it actually was, and all the way through all the rest of the episodes, and then watching our tiny but mighty community grow. And we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on what the intent of each of the episodes were this season. I wanted to also, over there, because I have the freedom and the space and less trolls, but we're going to dive into how the financial system has turned us into Stockholm Syndrome survivors financially, making us thank our captors for the crumbs while they feast on our labor. And I would like to unpack some of the real resource redistribution and what that would look like when it's not just on a hashtag in some corporate DEI campaign. I really would like to have the space over there to get real about partnership dynamics, because nothing exposes capitalism's grip like trying to build wealth while queer in a system designed for heteronormative families only, heteronormative transfers of power only, right? So from burnout to breakthrough, post-election panic to strategic power building, we are going to cover a lot more in the extended episode. I will give you the intro to Left Out No More in that extended episode. I want us to speak from where we are and not feel bad about it. So while I'm diving into tax season and I'm getting ready, season 2 is already shaping up to be a more radically strategic and definitely more committed season for Queer Black Wealth, so that we can start building real paths to freedom together. So please consider joining us on Substack. I am going to be dropping the extended episode soon, so you do have to watch the community posts on the YouTube channel. If you subscribe, you'll be aware of it. Thank you so much for this season and for listening, for engaging and just being kind and encouraging to me. You all have been so awesome. I'll see you over at Substack. Take care.